A proposed bill in Congress would prevent sexual harassment claims from being settled with taxpayer dollars. Democratic Congresswoman Schakowski weighed in on the issue here on Capitol Hill. Do you support prohibiting taxpayer money from paying and settling issues of sexual harassment here in Congress among members?
So here's the problem. In the city of Chicago, when there's misconduct by a police officer, they sued the city. Why? Because you can't get much money out of a cop to settle a claim. And so what we have to look at is justice for victims. So I'm still agnostic about the idea of whether or not there has to be consequences for the perpetrator. There's no question about it. And I think there has to be a continuum of sanctions for depending on what the crime is. But so I'm still agnostic on whether or not we can be sure that we give compensation that's due to a victim if we make sure, because not everyone in this Congress is rich. And it's not certain that someone who is a perpetrator of sexual harassment or worse is rich and can adequately compensate. So I understand the reluctance to use dollars that our taxpayers are contributing to pay for this, but I also worry that we will not be able to adequately compensate victims if there at least isn't partly some of that money.
How about the requiring the reimbursement of the existing claims? Like there's one with Congressman Farenthold, and then there's Congressman Conyers, of course. The requirement, do you think there should be a bill to require that they reimburse for the past claims?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think if that is, you can't always get water from a rock. But, I do think that there has to be some kind of accountability, and that can certainly include dollars from the perpetrator. But I wouldn't want that to interfere with what the individual victim gets. But, asking for reimbursement and asking for compensation, certainly I think that ought to be part of it.
Mm-hmm. So as far as an actual bill going forward for the future, you wouldn't support requiring or prohibiting taxpayer money from going to these settlement claims?
I want to see what's in a bill. Here's my concern. I think that there is a whole continuum from unwanted language or a hand on the butt to actually having a sexual predator going after young underage girls like we have with Roy Moore. I think there's a continuum, and I think there also needs to be a continuum of sanctions against those people. It is not one thing. And so we don't have a process right now, a process that the public feels is credible, that is fair to the victim, that also offers due process to the accused. And it's about time, I think, that we have one. I've had from the day I got here, my office handbook, my policies in the office have been very, very clear, prohibiting these things. We also, by the way, I think as a political party, ought to require anybody who wants support of that party during a campaign to make very clear what their policies are in harassment and hold them accountable and not get support from the party if there are violations of that. So this is a very important conversation that is probably 2,000 years overdue. I mean, women have been abused, and it ranges, as I said, from sexism, which is an everyday occurrence that women suffer, all the way to sexual assault and being a predator.
On Capitol Hill, I'm Nicholas Balassi.